to the Great Big Indian Wellness Show presented by iGlobal. My name is Priti Raichura, and joining me here today is Neil Shah. Neil, a very warm welcome to you today on the Great Big Indian Wellness Show. We've got lots to talk about and are of course limited with time, but we're going to talk about happiness. And I'm going to start by asking you, what exactly is happiness?
A great question. And I think if you'd asked that question to someone 2 years ago, it would have been a very different answer to what you get today. It feels like we're about as far away from happiness as you could possibly get with all of the crazy events that have happened over the last 18 months. We find ourselves living in somewhat of a Black Mirror dystopian version of reality where walking outside your front door is more fantastical than anything you can find on Netflix. And that usually doesn't align with feelings of happiness and joy, particularly with the challenge and restrictions we face. And that's largely because a lot of us rest our feelings of happiness on external factors. I'll be happy when lockdown is over. I'll be happy when I can go on vacation. I'll be happy when, I can go and see my friends and family and relatives. I'll be happy when the kids are graduated. I'll be happy when the mortgage is paid off. If you're waiting for something to happen to be happy, I'm sorry to break this to you, chances are you're never really going to be truly happy. It's a transient experience if it's resting on external factors. Now, there's a really important thing for me to introduce at this point, which is the universal law of impermanence. Everything in this universe is impermanent. You and I, sorry to break this to you, Priti, you are not permanent. There will be a point where you won't be here anymore. This beautiful plant behind me won't be here anymore. This building, this structure, this very planet at some point, this universe will eventually cease to exist. So whatever you are experiencing right here, right now, no matter how challenging or uncomfortable or traumatic or painful or miserable it is, it will end. Sure. But equally, no matter how much joy and happiness and love that you're experiencing, that too, sadly, I'm sorry to break this to you, at some point will end. And that is the experience of life. Everything is transient. Sure. So happiness is when we can take ourselves out from that experience. True happiness is resting on what's going on inside rather than what's going on outside. It's not resting on impermanent features or impermanent experiences. It's more a sense of being.
So it kind of almost sounds a little bit spiritual here as well.
Absolutely.
But are we talking about the fact that people need to be more conscious about the word happiness? Are you supposed to be kind of waking up in the morning and saying, today I'm going to smile, today I'm going to be happy? But it kind of goes back to what that means for individuals. What does it mean? Are you putting a lot of emphasis on external factors, or is it having that consciousness about wanting to be happy?
It's an interesting point. Is it spiritual? Yes, it is, and no, it isn't. Happiness is mental, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. There are 5 components to it. And that's also the 5 components to overall well-being. So mental, what goes on in your mind, your reaction to external events will determine whether you are putting yourself into a place of joy and happiness. Physical, because there's a physical component. There are certain hormones that are produced. There are certain biological changes that happen when you go into that state of happiness. Hormones like serotonin, endorphins, that will give you kind of a mood lift. Emotional, that's that sense of connection that we feel when we feel joy and happiness. Social, because we are, as human beings, we are social creatures. It's our connection to each other that will, again, contribute and influence our sense of happiness. And spiritual, and again, it's a really important point that you raise around spirituality, because a lot of people attribute spirituality to religion. Now, the two are not the same. Sure. Religion could be your spiritual expression, but religion could be anti-spiritual, in the sense that it could take you away from connecting to something bigger because you're following doctrine and dogma. Does that make sense? I don't follow any established religion, but I would consider myself to be quite a spiritual person. For me, spirituality is connecting to something bigger, something greater. That could be being present in the moment, time in nature, meditation, mindfulness practice, running, riding my bike, swimming in a lake, where I'm present in this moment, which allows me to feel the joy of this moment. Most of our stress, most of our misery happens in the past or the future because we're upset about things that already happened, or we're concerned or fretting about things that haven't happened yet. Actually, true happiness is when we are present in this moment and just enjoying all the gifts of this moment, of the present, which is why it's called the present, because it's a gift.
Sure. Now, obviously, you're an international speaker. You're world renowned. And in terms of the kind of work that you do and the people that you probably come across, do you actually come across people that are constantly thinking about happiness or not thinking about happiness, maybe?
No, that's an interesting point. If you're constantly thinking about happiness, you'd be miserable.
Yes.
Because you'd stress yourself out about it. Actually,
I want to be happy. I don't know how.
yeah, the most
Yeah.
free people are not focused on happiness. It's just a way of being because they're present. Through my work, I've had the opportunity to literally travel the world, work with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, different locations, different industries. We've had non-commercial projects working with people, actually some of the poorest, most deprived people on the planet, according to our standards. I have found the happiest people are the ones that had the least in terms of commercial success or resources, materials, because for them, happiness didn't rest on, do I have the latest pair of trainers or the latest iPhone? Their happiness rested on connection, the things that we would take for granted, like I got to eat today, I got to spend time with the people I care about. I remember I once did a project with it was a division of the UN, UNDP, and I was in Africa, and basically what we would consider to be a slum. And there was a school that I was taken to, which was basically like most people's garden sheds would be fancier than this schoolhouse. And the kids were in there in the class, and I was taken out to them. Like you couldn't even get there in a vehicle. I had to get on the back of a motorbike for the last leg of the journey because it was just a complete dirt track for about sort of 20 kilometers. And arrived there, and I wanted to take a gift for these kids. And I'd spoken to the head teacher, and they all love football, even though they were in the middle of nowhere. They all knew who David Beckham was, and they love football. So I turned up and I had a little gift for them, and basically when they came out and I was like, oh, you guys like football? And they went and got their football, which was basically a bunch of plastic bags wrapped around with rubber bands. Wow. And we had a bit of a kick around with their ball. And the gift that I brought them, I bought basically a leather football, right? Like a proper, proper football from the shops. It's only like 30 quid. And for these kids, it was like Christmas, New Year's, Diwali, like every holiday rolled into, and their birthdays, like every birthday they ever had. And the joy that brought them. And I was thinking to myself, if I walked into a school in West London and took them a football, they'd be like, where's the PlayStation? What is that? Because actually they derived their joy from play, from connection, from, just being able to express themselves. It didn't need material goods. And actually the more we have, and there's actually a bell curve on this, the more we have, the more miserable we get. So actually when we start resting our happiness on what's going on inside rather than what's going on outside is when you're freeing yourself, when you're liberating yourself. Because right now we're all addicted. We're addicted to our devices. Oh, I didn't get enough likes and enough hits. I didn't get enough people sharing my post. Not enough people have watched this session. Oh my God, I'm so miserable, right? Amazon's telling me I must buy this. I must buy it right now. Otherwise I'm going to be miserable. And then you get kind of a short-term hit of happiness when you place the order, the secondary hit of happiness when the order arrives, and it dissipates very quickly. The only way to feel happy again is to keep consuming. So actually, most of us are not really liberating ourselves. We're not achieving happiness. You're addicts. You're addicted to the things that you believe make you happy, but actually are just controlling your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Sure. So are you saying then that a lot of us are always worrying about something or stressing over something or connecting to materialistic things that we are relying on that keeps us happy?
What did Mahatma Gandhi say? 90% of the things that we worry about never come to pass. So how much of your emotional energy are you investing in things that won't even happen? Why not invest that emotional energy in something that brings you and the people around you joy? And actually, this is where I felt that we had a great opportunity over the last 18 months. As much as we didn't choose this and it was tragic and people have lost so much, it did give us an opportunity to be present to the things that actually are important, like time with our families, like, you know, really connecting with ourselves, being present. But a lot of people squander that opportunity by sitting there watching Netflix and eating pizza and actually spending more time on their devices. A study we did earlier in the year suggested people spend 60% more time on their technology, on their devices over the last 18 months than they did previously, which for me is such a lost opportunity. This was an opportunity to actually refocus on ourselves.
So you just said about, you know, we had those 18 months out as a community, as a whole, you know, international kind of the whole globe. What should people have been doing? I mean, are you suggesting that there is a systematic way of trying to engage with something, like you said, whether it's this spiritual, whether it's with yourself, whether it's, you know, around nature? You mentioned swimming earlier. Is there a systematic way of making yourself feel better?
Yes. So there's a word that I'd like to offer you before I give you an answer to that question. And the word is power. Priti, if I ask you, when applied to a human being, the word power, what would you believe that that means? If you think of a powerful person, how would you describe or define that person?
Maybe somebody who's able to do whatever they can within their own limitations, I guess.
Yeah, to a degree. A lot of people think it means control, influence, strength. Actually, and again, I'm going to encourage everyone not to believe that word I say. I encourage you to look this up for yourself. The word power, when applied to a human being, quite literally means the ability to do or act. The person with the greatest power has the greatest ability to do or act. You don't need to be in a leadership position or in an important position in society. Every single one of us has the choice. Every single one of us has the ability to be the next Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, whatever, Nelson Mandela. If we believe and basically take back our power, this is the moment to do that. And really, you know, going back to your point, the biggest power we have is over what goes on up here and what goes on down here, which in turn influences what's happening in my body. Now, really, the biggest thing that we can do is bring ourselves back to the moment where the power exists, which is right here, right now. Not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future. So how do you do that? Whatever you are going to do in your life, do it mindfully. Mindfulness isn't meditation, by the way. Mindfulness isn't like sitting there chanting Om, sat under a tree, pretending to be like Buddha, trying to achieve enlightenment. That could be. Mindfulness is literally being present in the moment with no judgment. That means that when you are working, when I'm having this conversation with you, you'd know if I was unmindful, as I was maybe before we started recording, where I'm saying, what's my notes? What do I need to do there? And you could tell that Neil's focused on something else. He's looking up the questions or whatever. Yeah. Right now, you can tell I'm present with you. You have my presence. That's the most important gift I can give you. It's the most important gift you can give your children, your family. The amount of people that spend their evening meals looking at screens or devices and they're not present with each other. Most people that you know, when they're working, they've got 3 screens and they're doing multiple things at the same time. What I'm asking everyone to do is give yourself the gift of presence with whatever you're doing, whether that's your meals, whether that's going out for your walks rather than listening to a podcast or making calls. Just walk and be present with nature. Or, you know, when you're communicating with other people, just again, give them the gift of your presence. But most importantly, the most important person in your life, Priti, is who? Is
yourself?
And I like the way that you pose that as a question. Is it yourself? And most people do. It is absolutely yourself. Remember those metal tubes we used to fly around the world in? They're called planes. You've probably forgotten. It was such a long time ago. But before the plane takes off, and they talk about the safety instructions before the plane takes off, they always say if there's a drop in cabin pressure, put the mask on yourself before you put it on someone else. So what I'm saying to you is prioritize your needs. Give yourself the gift of your own presence. Are you present with yourself? Do you love and nurture and cherish yourself? How do you talk to yourself? Do you talk to yourself in the same way you talk to someone else? Like I had to go through a process of recognizing I'm the worst boss in the world because I work for myself. Right. You know, and the way I talk to myself, I would never talk to any of my colleagues. And I had to kind of really shift my relationship with myself. That's where happiness starts. When you start to actually create a place of love for yourself, where you start to nourish and nurture yourself, where you start to give yourself the gift of your own time.
Sure. We are running out of time. You just said time and we're absolutely running out of time. I could talk to you all day, Neil, because I think, you know, you mentioned some really key points there: nurturing, time management, spending time with yourself, loving yourself. And I think, you know, to summarize all that, if I said, summarize everything you've said in just 30 seconds, what would you say are the main points?
Don't wait for permission. Take back your power. Your happiness is not resting on external events. It is a choice. So you can choose to be a victim, which quite literally defines as someone that is powerless, or you can choose to be empowered, someone that has given themselves the ability to do or act to create the lives that you deserve. I'm in the process of writing a new book called The Art and Science of Happiness, which will be out soon, but you can find out so much more about all the work we're doing at www.stress.org.uk. And I'm really wishing every single person that's listening today all the best in your journey to happiness, because it is a journey and it is a choice. And this is the moment where we start to step into the truth of who we are, rather than the stories about ourselves that we've been living for so long.
It's been awesome having you here on iGlobal. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Neil Shah. Thank you very much.